20,000 scientists have now publicly come to the conclusion that we are screwed. Now, I know people tend to shut down every time someone starts talking about the environment or going green, renewable energies. For some reason, it's just not a popular topic of conversation, but it's an incredibly relevant one. There are people who flat out deny that the climate is changing, and there are people who say it's just part of the world. But here's the thing. The oceans are rising. They're getting higher every year. Puerto Rico is still a catastrophe. Not just because they're not getting what they need from that idiot in the White House, but because the intensity of the storms are skyrocketing because of climate change. When the ice melts and releases a ton of methane, we can't get that methane back into the ice. We can't suddenly take it out of the atmosphere. These are very real problems that we need to be focusing on. Now, typically on this channel, I want to cover UK news and politics and things that affects the UK and the world in general. So when I go on about gun control in the US, it's not something that typically affects the rest of the world, but there is a little bit of a link, and personally I find it interesting. But the EPA over the last year under Scott Pruitt in the Trump administration has not only done horrible things to the environment, which affects every person on the planet, but they have undone a load of regulations that the Obama industry and to an extent even some of the Bush administrations had put in. So the rate of decay that we're having in our ecosystem around the world is just getting worse and worse and worse. Now, people are starting to take note with the amount of plastics that's in the ocean, thanks to the BBC documentary, but it's not enough. 20,000 scientists have come out saying we need to act immediately, today, yesterday, or we are screwed. And it's not the first time that they've said this. They actually came out in unison 25 years ago and said, look, we really need to sort this out because it's going to get worse. And it has. But here's where you come in. Now, you're not, or I'm assuming you personally are not running coal companies or oil companies or anything like that. But where you put your money does make a difference. Who you elect does make a difference. Who you vote for does make a difference. And you can have an unbelievable presence using the internet. You clearly have the internet right now. You can get on Twitter. You can force the politicians who are meant to represent you actually take note of this issue. And if they're unwilling to do anything and your country is unwilling to do anything, then protest. Peaceful protests, of course, but we need to make this change. This isn't just something that future generations will have to deal with. This is something that we are seeing now, today. It is March and there is snow in Dover. I've lived in Dover practically my entire life and I've never seen snow this extent in Dover. Particularly as it's the second time in 2-3 weeks. I know local weather is slightly different to climate change, but it does add up. Storms are getting worse. The oceans are becoming more polluted. The EPA is stripping away regulations, which means that big companies are polluting more and more in rivers, in oceans, into the air. It doesn't just affect one local population, it affects everyone. We have to act now, otherwise there won't be a tomorrow to live in.